welcome back to the Dan Jones Show. We are live in Washington, D.C., and one of our missions here is to try to build understandings between people who don't agree. And the gun control debate is divisive, it's polarizing, and we're not going to agree on how to stop all the shootings and all the violence, but it's important that we actually listen to each other's perspective. So joining us now are two college students, two young people, same generation, and they're leading their own fight for their own rights to bear arms. So Savannah Lindquist is here, and so is Jace Lick here. Give them a big round of applause and stand up. Now, yeah, thank you. We don't have to, we can disagree without disrespecting, and especially on the Dan Jones Show. Your story is so important to me. You're somebody, you grew up with guns, you had a gun permit, you got accepted to a college that was a gun-free zone, you decided to leave your gun at home, and then you were the victim of a sexual assault. So many people say guns are the problem, but from your point of view, a gun in your situation might have been a solution. From a young woman's point of view, what are we missing in this gun debate?
I mean, I think that there's so much that we're missing, but the biggest aspect of it is the importance of self-defense. You know, I was lucky to get accepted to my dream school, and I was able to pursue a degree in neuroscience, which is something I dreamed of for my entire life. Sorry, but after 3.5 years at my dream school, I dropped out because of what happened. And after 3.5 years, all I had to show for my time there was a horrific experience in student loans. And I don't want anyone to have to go through what I did. And coming out with my story was really hard. It was something that, you know, I thought a lot about. And since coming out with my story, you know, I've gotten death threats and everything like that. But if I have to sort of bare my soul to the world to make sure that no one has to go through what I did, it's worth it.
Well, listen, I appreciate your courage, and I'm so sorry for what you've been through, and nobody should be threatened for having a point of view. So thank you for being here. It means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Jace, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're here, Jace, because first of all, you were the youngest delegate at the Republican convention in 2016. You represent a whole other slice of your generation that sees this very differently. What are we missing? When we're out here, we're marching, we're shouting, we're screaming. You've got some real concerns. What are they?
Well, first of all, young people love their civil liberties. They love their Fourth Amendment, their Second Amendment, their First Amendment. So I think young people especially really cherish their civil liberties, and the Second Amendment is a civil liberty, just like any of the others. And a Pew Research poll actually came out and it said that millennials were actually more pro-gun than your generation, which a lot of people wouldn't really think of, but there is a significant number of young people like me and Savannah that do value our civil liberties, especially our right to self-defense.
And when you hear about the shootings that we've been talking about, and you hear about the street violence, how does that land with you? I mean, what do you see as a solution?
Well, it's tragic. I think the thing they were talking about in Chicago was more a lack of economic development, and I think certainly the young men over there are doing a perfect job of what they need to do.
Well, let me ask you a question. One of the things, we're all here together, they actually have real proposals, policy proposals, and I want to show them to you and see what you guys think about them. Is any of this acceptable to you as young folks who are pro-Second Amendment? We'll put them up. They're saying, listen, let's ban assault weapons, let's prohibit the sale of those high-capacity magazines, let's establish universal background checks, fund the research that we are not allowed to do in the United States right now, and digitize the gun sale records. Those are 5 concrete policies. Are any of those policies acceptable to you as young folks who care passionately about the Second Amendment?
Well, I think funding gun research is
that's common ground.
I think you shouldn't have to take a background check if you want to buy a gun. I think universal background check is a little different, because that would mean if you want to hand a gun down to your son or something like that, they'd have to go through a background check. So it gets a little tricky, but I think you should have to take a background check if you want to buy a gun, and we do support funding for additional research.
So there is some common ground. What for you, from your point of view, were any of those acceptable?
I agree with the background checks. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I haven't even had a speeding ticket. I have no problem with passing a background check. But like he mentioned, it does get a little complicated when you're talking about passing a gun from generation to generation.
So there's some technicalities or whatever. Listen, You guys seem reasonable, and you guys seem reasonable. Maybe after the show we can get together and figure something out. One of the things, and I hope I don't offend you, but one of the things that seems to get in the way of reasonable agreement is the NRA. And I know you may be able to speak up for them, but I did my own research. And I want to show you what I found about the NRA. Most of us know the NRA as a super powerful gun rights lobby, but in the past, it actually supported some gun control laws. In the 1930s, the NRA publicly endorsed the nation's first federal gun control laws that banned machine guns, prohibited felons from owning firearms, and required gun owners and sellers to register with the federal government. In 1967, the NRA actually supported a ban on the open carry of loaded firearms, passed in California by then-Governor Ronald Reagan.
There is absolutely no reason why, out on the street, civilians should be carrying a loaded weapon.
The ban was largely seen as a reaction to the Black Panthers, who pushed for African Americans to arm themselves against racist violence. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, things started to change. Rising crime rates, plus the high-profile assassinations going on at that time, spurred Congress to pass the most prohibitive federal gun laws in modern U.S. history. These new laws angered many of the NRA's rank and file. So in 1977, at the NRA's annual convention, members voted out the leadership and installed hardliners who radically changed the organization. The group later changed tactics, using political ads to rile up the members to take action against gun control and to put pressure on lawmakers.
Get the facts at gunbanobama.com.
From 1998 to 2017, the NRA spent $144 million on outside spending. And if you're wondering if this strategy is working, consider this. The last major piece of federal gun legislation that's still on the books is the Brady Act, which mandates background checks. And that was passed nearly 25 years ago. Now, I made that video. Give me some love. I'm amazing. So I put that to you because you both seem so reasonable. Are you worried that maybe the NRA is getting a black eye, maybe becoming a more of a toxic brand for your generation, or do you see it very differently?
Well, I'm a proud member of the National Rifle Association.
Tell us why.
Well, they do great work defending our civil liberties. I know in Florida, they raised the age to 21 and the NRA is suing the state. And as someone that's 19 years old, I'm very proud to be part of an organization that, fights for my civil liberties, especially to own a gun. So I am a proud member. I have been a bit critical because I don't think they do a good job as putting forward their own proposals for school safety as much as they do defeating gun bills. But I do think they are a force for good for my generation and for civil liberties.
And how do you see it? You were a bigger fan of the NRA in the past than you are now.
Yes.
Why?
I was once a proud member of the NRA. After the Philando Castile murder, I decided to cancel my membership.
Why was that?
I just felt like he was the NRA. Like, he should have...
This is an African-American man who had a gun in his car, and he told the police he had a gun in his car, and he got shot by the police.
And he was murdered. And I just, as a college student with limited money, that's just not where I wanted to give it.
I sometimes feel as an African-American that I get stereotyped, get lumped in, and have a negative brand associated with me. Do you feel as a gun owner that gun owners are also sometimes stereotyped as being gun nuts, et cetera? I mean, at the emotional level, do you sometimes feel branded negatively?
I feel branded as I'm not caring. The National Rifle Association doesn't care about children in schools when that's not the case. We care just as much as people on the other side do, but we just have different solutions is all, but we still care.
I think it's very, very important. Now listen, up next, we've got an Oscar winner, Jennifer Hudson. She had an amazing performance, and she has a message for all of us when we get back. Thank you very much. And thank you very much.